If you're like me, you might have been playing a fair amount of Deadlock lately. If you aren't familiar, Deadlock is Valve's new MOBA game. It's a third-person shooter MOBA, and I am admittedly not very good at it. But I can't lie, I'm kinda addicted. The funny thing is, I haven't really played any Valve games before. I know of them, of course, but I wasn't really a PC gamer growing up. The last time I played TF2 was 2016 when I was 14, and while I have Left 4 Dead 2, I've never played it. But those games are arguably not even Valve's most iconic. There's a character in Deadlock called the Doorman who has an ability that harkens back to Valve's most iconic series, Portal. Doorman places 2 doors on walls and creates a portal connecting them. Even though I don't play Doorman, the portal tech is undeniably cool. And that got me thinking, I should probably play the Portal games, huh? So, I did. Here's what I thought. Now, the first thing I have to cover is how much I knew about Portal going in. I am vaguely familiar with GLaDOS, these 2 robots, because of the cover art, and that I began Portal 2 probably 10 years ago. All I remember about Portal 2 was that it was like low-key scary. I don't know. I have no idea if Little Me was right or if I was just creeped out for no reason, but that's what I'm about to find out. Needless to say, I didn't get very far in Portal 2 because of that. I've also absorbed memes like the cake is a lie through cultural osmosis, but I don't really even know the context for that. So, without further ado, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more blind franchise playthroughs, and comment below what I should play next. Okay, for real, no more ado, let's play Portal. Right off the bat, the first thing I noticed about Portal is 2 things. It has the sickest company logo I've ever seen, and it is bare bones. I mean, look at the way the title font clashes on the white background. I mean, what is that, Arial font? This is the first thing you see of the actual game itself. That and the eerily sterile room. Then, you start the game, and the menus have the exact same sounds and look as Gary's mod, which I found kind of funny. I could have assumed that Portal was in the source engine because it's a Valve game, and because it seemed to control and feel like Gary's mod from the little bit that I've seen online. Once the game starts, you are greeted by the soothing sounds of Persona music? I swear, when I heard those first horns, I thought I was playing Persona 4 for like half a second. Shortly after being assaulted by Persona music, you are greeted by really the game's only character, GLaDOS. After walking through the first portal, you can see yourself. It honestly surprised me that the games never tell you what her name is. If you only play the single-player modes of both games, you would know nothing about the playable character in these games. GLaDOS at one point references her parents, but who knows if she was even telling the truth. So as far as I am aware, she is just some random woman. I don't exactly need to know anything about her. She's really just a player insert because she doesn't talk at all. But I was surprised to find out that there is actually nothing about who this heroine is outside of her appearance. I guess I'm not that surprised in some sense when I start to think about it, because I don't think I've really ever heard anyone mention her when talking about Portal. It's always GLaDOS that anyone talks about, and clearly for good reason. Not only is GLaDOS really the only character in the game, but she is fascinating to listen to.
Good job. As part of a required test protocol, we will stop enhancing the truth in 3, 2...
We need to change our...
She's got a kind of piercing voice, tone, and cadence that really grabbed my attention, thanks in large part to Ellen McLean's wonderful work. She cuts in at the beginning and end of each of the chamber puzzle rooms, generally giving you a bit of context or just straight up insulting you. When it was revealed that there were 19 chambers, I honestly was a bit surprised, especially with how baby easy the first few chambers were. I cruised through the first 13 chambers with basically no issue, just getting used to the somewhat disorienting portal mechanic. The main chamber that gave me some issues completing was chamber 15. Building up the momentum to get through the 2 gates was tricky, and I had one of my first experiences getting a little stuck in my own portal and being super disoriented. Then there's the bouncing energy orb puzzle, and I completed it by accident, actually. Then, room 16 shifts the vibe entirely. This is the first turret room, which is already a big jump, but then you turn this corner and see a couple cubes propping open the wall. Naturally, I went to check what's outside and realized that my younger self was actually kind of right. Portal is a little creepy. And hey, look, the cake is a lie. Charlie bit my finger. Chocolate rain. Can I have cheeseburger now? Sorry. But hey, look at this. Okay, that's the last meme from 2007, I promise. Anyway, I was shocked to know that Portal had this side of it. I truly thought it was just a simple puzzle game with a unique gimmick, which it mostly is. but I didn't know this kind of environmental storytelling was in it. There's another of these breakout sections in the next room, but both are merely there for atmospheric purposes. It would have been cool if they had some bearing on how to complete the chamber, or some alternate path to escape if they were a bit more hidden for like a secret ending to a chamber, for example. Regardless, they're fun to explore around and catch the eerie and off-putting vibe. Once you finally clear all 19 chambers, you are greeted with the cake GLaDOS promised. What? The cake is a lie.
The cake is a lie, people.
Auto-tune.
In all seriousness, this reveal is really fun. I love the way she breaks after you escape her death trap, and how that kicks off an entirely different portion of the game. One problem I do have with her trap, though, is that it is laughably slow. I wouldn't have minded a bit more of like a dire or urgent feeling and scrambling to try and escape. This whole post-chamber section was awesome, though. As I mentioned earlier, I had no idea about anything that happened in Portal. Portal 2, I have some semblance of what happens, at least at the very start, but that you escape the facility in Portal 1? No idea. Even though I knew the cake was a lie, I had no idea of the behind-the-walls portion of the game. As you make your way through this Blitz escape section, you see more markings on the walls, but what I was disappointed by was how I was already seeing repeating phrases and markings. That disappointment grew larger when I realized that I had that feeling that you get in a game where you know there's going to be some major plot point or boss fight. I had that end of game feeling when I'd only been playing for around, I don't know, maybe 2 hours. Sure enough, I open the door, see GLaDOS for the first time, and fight. Her boss fight isn't that difficult. It's more about finding where the personality orbs land, which did get me killed once, I won't lie. So I beat GLaDOS, watched the cutscene, and credits? Really? That was it. I said I was shocked before that I hadn't heard about the breakout sections, but I really had no idea Portal 1 is this short. Going in completely blind, I beat it in under 2 hours. Under 2 hours! When I was flying through the early test chambers, I had a slanderous take thought. This is just a glorified tech demo. Come to find out, that's kind of the truth, actually. My slanderous take isn't even slanderous, it's kind of just true. What I kind of struggle with in talking about puzzle games is, how do I rate a puzzle? Do I rate it highly if it takes me a long time? If I found it fun? What if I had a bad experience because I was dumb and didn't find the solution fast enough? Is that on me, or is that on the puzzle designer? In any case, I did like the puzzles in Portal, especially the momentum puzzles. The rooms that stood out to me the most are Chamber 15 and the turret ambush. I loved how open that room felt and how many different ways it felt like there were to escape the ambush. Moving from turret to turret methodically to eliminate all of them was great, and the ambush aspect of it was a fun change of pace too. I do think that the Portal tech was probably way more impressive back in 2007, but even now there were moments where it got me excited. Escaping that turret ambush was so fun to find the exact line for, and when it all clicks, it still feels like magic. I did play all of the advanced levels as well, and they were a nice little addition, but nothing too crazy challenging or notable. I would have loved some extra bonus levels that are entirely new and extra difficult, but the advanced versions of the normal test chambers were fine. The challenge mode seems like a nice side thing too, but I wasn't too interested in the challenges that were offered. The music is also surprisingly strong. 4,000 Degrees Kelvin is a track that I didn't fully hear at the end of Chamber 19, but by listening to the soundtrack, it stood out a lot to me. That song goes kind of hard. Everyone knows and talks about the credits song, and it is great. Even the credits themselves have a charming uniqueness to them. And hey, look, the cake isn't a lie after all. So while I am a bit disappointed in its length, Portal still offers a bit of interesting depth in puzzles. It's clearly quite unique, because not many other games have even bothered to try and implement the Portal tech into it. Valve's got some sauce, man, that other companies won't even dare to try and replicate. Hopefully the second game keeps that sauce flowing. Well, Valve was certainly cooking with this one. Just like Halo 2 in my last video, the sequel is simply miles better than the original. I'm talking better puzzles, better environments, better characters, everything. While Portal 1 at times felt like a tech demo, Portal 2 feels 100% like a real, full game, even if it is still a tad short. The title screen was the first improvement I noticed. I love the sounds the options make when you flick over them, and I liked the transition they used too. The title screen is also a little eerie, just like I remembered back when I was younger. And sure enough, when you start the game, you wake up in the room I remember, a small hotel room. It begins to deteriorate, and Wheatley shows up to help you escape this new prison. Wheatley, played by Stephen Merchant, does an incredible job of providing a contrast to GLaDOS throughout the game. After the room was finished breaking, I jumped down into entirely new territory. I do not remember literally anything else from my brief time playing Portal 2 other than that room breaking apart. I don't know if little me was scared or confused or bored or just didn't appreciate witty and clever dialogue, but something didn't click for little me maybe 10 years ago. Now, Wheatley definitely clicks more. Wheatley himself is representative of a much more enhanced writing for Portal 2. Really, that's mostly because there's other characters than GLaDOS, so the writing alone is more varied, and GLaDOS is improved too because she has another character to play off of. No, I don't count the playable character because I don't even know her name. Yes, even in this game, with way more depth to the writing, and honestly just far more writing total, we still learn absolutely nothing about the playable character. Again, not the biggest deal in the world, but I'm just surprised that they would make this model and have GLaDOS make remarks about her, but not have a backstory in-game at all, at least as far as I saw. I'm sure there's plenty about her in lore books or something, but I try to only go off of what's in-game and give the most blind new player experience possible. So she's really just a player insert, and that's totally fine. The story overall is, well, existent this time, I suppose. I mean, it's a little bare bones and somewhat simple, but what really carries it is the writing and the great performances from the voice actors. All three of Ellen McLean, Stephen Merchant, and J.K. Simmons absolutely kill their performances. Shit, even the turrets are great. There's a bit more variety in their personalities too, which makes for a fun little section and recurring bit. Cave Johnson's Lemons monologue stood out to me as a really funny moment.
All right, I've been thinking. When life gives you lemons, don't make lemonade. Make life take the lemons back. Get mad. I don't want your damn lemons. What am I supposed to do with these?
It's part of a lot of dialogue moments where a character will just fully go off on a tangent or a rant or ramble, mostly Wheatley, and just babble on about whatever they are waiting for you to do. All those moments worked really well for me. In particular, there's a moment with Wheatley in the turret conveyor belt control room that I really liked. Wheatley has this recurring bit about not being able to hack things while you're looking at him, and I was fully willing to just stand there with my back turned to him for the whole 10 minutes. Unfortunately, I was moving around a little too much and realized that the door was already open and walked through it. That moment in particular really stood out to me as the moment where I went, oh, this is just the Stanley Parable, isn't it? Now, yes, I am aware that the Stanley Parable came out after Portal 2, but wait, I just looked it up, and the Stanley Parable apparently was originally released a couple months after Portal 2 as a mod for Half-Life 2. Huh. I guess my slander-ish take for this game is also weirdly kind of accurate. Regardless of my guy who's only seen Boss Baby seeing his second movie-ness, I do think that a lot of what Portal 2 does with its story is the same as the Stanley Parable. There's plenty of wandering around, and the narrators of the story will react to how you interact with the environment. They'll respond to you ignoring them, or going in the wrong direction, or whatever else you can figure out. I don't make this comparison as a negative, but more so that I was surprised by how many sections of the game there were that were mostly just walking around without real puzzles attached. That is, however, one of my least favorite parts about Portal 2 is the traversal sections. Sometimes they can be a bit boring. The dialogue helps, certainly, but many of the puzzles in these traversal sections were just about finding the one spot you can put a portal to continue forward. Most of the time it felt like there wasn't really a challenging puzzle using those portals, but just that you needed to see that there's actually a wall way far away that you can attach a portal to. Another thing I didn't love was the loading screens. Yes, it's not that big of a deal, of course. We're not talking about old-gen console Skyrim or anything. They didn't take that long. But more so of the timing of the cutscenes was awkward at times. There were multiple times where things were heating up in the story, or it was meant to be a frantic chase scene, that are interrupted by these loading screens and kind of kill the momentum. That's really the main way this game shows its age, I think. That, and maybe some of the dialogue feels a bit too Reddit quirk chungus or whatever, but honestly, I don't really care about that at all, and mainly because the performances are so good. Also, this is where the context of it releasing in 2011 comes in a lot, where I'm not going to criticize you for Reddit Quirk Chungus dialogue that didn't really exist even back in 2011. I've talked a lot so far about the story and voice work in the game, but now let's talk about the improvements on the gameplay side, because this game is easily a step up on the first in that regard too. First off, the portal mechanic feels a lot smoother than in the first game. The camera doesn't rotate as much when you go through a portal, which makes the game much less disorienting, but also a little easier. I never felt like I had a moment where I truly got lightly motion sick, but I did have that feeling a little bit in the first game. So that improvement's a really nice quality of life update. I will say, I don't totally love how the portals feel much less malleable in this game. Basically, in Portal, you could shoot a portal off center of a wall or something, and the circle would generate as you shot it. In Portal 2, there's actually a bit of aim assist, is the best way I could put it. The portals won't rotate like they did in Portal, but that isn't really that big of a deal. Sometimes the customizability of the portals in Portal were a detriment, so I completely understand why they would add a portal assist mechanic. On to the actual puzzles though, and wow, Portal 2's puzzles are way more fun and unique. I loved having to point the laser using the boxes. I thought that was a really fun new mechanic from the first game. The light bridges and gravity fields are a fun wrinkle too, and who doesn't love a jump pad? The momentum puzzles remain my favorite, and lucky for me, there are even more interesting momentum puzzles in this game. It really ramps up when you get to the goo puzzles, which were probably my favorite in the whole game. It felt like there was so much creativity in how you could approach these puzzles, even if I didn't really play around with the goo all that much. Wait, is this where the idea for viscous comes from a little bit? Anyway, I had absolutely no idea that there was this section to the game, and I loved the blue goo bounce momentum puzzles. The speed puzzles using the orange goo were really fun too. It kind of turns this game into a movement game, which feels sick. The white goo puzzles broke my brain a little bit by really opening up the space with which you have to solve the puzzle. The first section with it was really fun to mess around in and see where you could get to by experimenting with where you can shoot the white goo. That sounds crazy. Sorry. I did pick up on the detail that it is made from moon rock, which I absolutely did not expect to come up. I did not see that proverbial gun on the wall. I just assumed it was another offhanded joke. But when I saw the moon at the end, it was like a sleeper agent activation phrase. I literally thought to myself, wait, the white goo was made out of the moon. Like I was in an anime. It was awesome. Speaking of which, the final boss fight against Wheatley was a little underwhelming. It felt like a bit too much of a repeat of what the GLaDOS boss fight was in Portal to me. I will say, though, that I had no idea that Wheatley was actually a villain for half the game. I think I had heard about Wheatley and had seen or heard about GLaDOS being a potato through cultural osmosis, but I truly did not know anything about the actual story for this game. I am especially surprised that I had never heard anyone mention the Portal to the Moon scene, because that was one of the standout cool moments of the campaign. It was a really fun ending, and I'm surprised that didn't bleed into the culture more. The final turret song, too, I don't think I had heard about before, but I guess that's probably because it was overshadowed by the credits song from Portal. One thing I was also a little disappointed by was the lack of official advanced levels in Portal 2. Portal's advanced levels were a nice bonus challenge, and I am a bit surprised they didn't reprise that for this game. I can only imagine the different ways you could solve some of those goo puzzles if you messed with the environment a little bit. Now, I do know there are community levels, which is awesome, but I'm not going to play those for this video, at least. I'm really only interested in what the developers created. I was admittedly hoping for a bit more of a challenge in Portal 2, and thought that advanced levels would have been a nice final touch. So, what have we learned? Well, the cake is indeed a lie. No, but seriously, even though both games were maybe a bit short, I did enjoy my time with Portal. I don't think they're one of my favorite games I've ever played or anything, but what these games show me with certainty is that nobody does it quite like Valve. Immense amounts of sauce they've got over there. And I'm lapping it all up with Deadlock right now, too. I am admittedly due for a Half-Life playthrough. I'll add it to the list of series to play for this channel. But for now, the Portal games were a nice pocket. Without a doubt, the tech was way more impressive back in 2007, but honestly, even now I had a few moments where I popped off when I solved a puzzle I was stuck on for a bit. That feeling of soaring through a portal and rocketing through the room again, but with more speed, was electric, even in 2026. As such, Portal gets my stamp of approval, whatever little that means. Go play Portal if you haven't and form your own opinion, and I will see you next time with a new franchise.